Pensioners throughout Australia have been sent these forms asking them to participate in the direct credit payment system instead of receiving cheques through the mail, which could be stolen. The plan is to pay the pensions directly into an account in a financial institution of their choice. According to the Secretary of the Australian Pensioners Association, Mr Jim Priest, the system is a good one.
I think it's an attempt by the government to make it easier for pensioners. There has been a lot of theft from mailboxes, and the government feel that it is a better way right through to have the money put into the bank.
The Department of Social Security sees the move towards direct credit payments as a way to keep up with the times. But if pensioners are incapacitated or live in outlying areas, they can still receive payment by cheque through the mail. Mr Noel Atkins.
If people are going to be disadvantaged by this method of payment, or if people live in a remote area, find it difficult to get to a bank, or because of age or disability, find it difficult to operate a bank account, they can apply for an exemption.
If you're still concerned about the changes and need some advice, the Social Security Department has set up a hotline on Sydney 02 20274 or ring the operator on 011 and reverse the charges.
The protest in the mall proves that the nuclear issue just won't go away, although Prime Minister Hawke probably wishes it would. Speakers at the rally included prominent local Labor Party members, Alderman Doug Carley, Federal Member for Charlton Mr Bob Brown, and State Member for Swansea Mr Don Bowman. The protest was organised by the Peace Forum earlier this week, before the United States let Australia off the hook on MX missile testing. But the rally went ahead anyway because the protesters are determined that Australia should not become involved in escalating the arms race. Peace Forum organiser Mr Jeff Turkle says the MX furor taught a valuable lesson.
The major lesson that has been learned, I think, is that if the Australian people protest loudly enough, they can make an impact on foreign policy. After all, it was their protest, the peace movement, together with a number of Labor Party politicians, which caused the reversal to take place. Often people say, well, what can I as an individual do in these questions? Well, I think this has clearly demonstrated that if they protest, things can be done.
Both men had been in their second term as Eastward Aldermen on the Newcastle City Council when it was dismissed, and are well known in the Stockton area. They were presented with community service plaques by church member Mr Malcolm Potts. Mr Rigby has been the chairman of the Stockton Anti-Pollution Committee for the past 20 years, worked with the North Stockton Surf Lifesaving Club for 10 years, and at the moment is helping to set up a new Girl Guides hall in the suburbs. Mr Lanham, meanwhile, has worked with the National Fitness Club for 24 years and with the Lions Club for 13 years. He is also an active member of the Save the Site Foundation and the Public Healthcare Foundation. The vital contracts were signed in Japan on Friday after a month of negotiations. The Newcastle 7 comprises Colin Allied, R.W. Millers, Buchanan Leamington, Clusa, Newcastle Wallsend Coal Company, Bloomfields and Warkworth Mining Associates. The Australian negotiators were pushing for a 5% increase in prices to restore profitability to Hunter coal producers. However, strong international competition forced them to accept last year's prices of $44.50 per tonne for Grade A and $44 per tonne for Grade B. The General Manager of Coal and Allied, Mr Bruce Thompson, said in Sydney today that the result is disappointing because the Newcastle 7 needed the higher sell prices to be able to reinvest in the industry.
In the Women's Open final, Sutherland in green and gold beat the girls from Parramatta 6 points to 3 after trailing by 1 touchdown at the half-time break. To avoid drawn matches, the first touchdown is worth 3 points, with all others valued at 2. Rugby league fans, the number 7 in green and gold is Karen Smith, a state player and daughter of St George great Billy Smith. Both teams, though, had a number of state players. Each title went to Sylvania, who beat South Sydney 5-2. The state's leading referees Neville Hockey and Bruce Beckman were in charge of the men's open that was between hot favourites and title holders Parramatta and unseeded Manly. After a scoreless first half, Manly got the first touchdown after a couple of near misses. Parramatta failed to score and Manly were state champions 3 points to 0. The men's over 35s went to Cronulla, who beat Canterbury 11-0, while the over 30s in men's was won by Manly, who defeated Cronulla 5 points to 2. One more!
Wales Government State Aid Committee is attempting to grapple with some of the grassroots problems in Strait, in particular how traffic laws are enforced. Surprisingly, committee members have been inundated by calls from the public. But one surprise result is that the hard steps surrounding the license is now being examined.
It would appear from the witnesses we've had and the evidence we've received that a number of people who lose their licence finish up in considerable distress. They're without a job, they can't drive. It doesn't just affect them, it affects their family, it affects their employers and a lot of other related people and issues. So we're looking at it with a view to considering whether that should be reviewed and revised at this moment.
But is there a risk, if you water down the deterrent, that people mightn't take seriously an offence like, for instance, drinking and driving?
Well, I think it's been well and truly established that they will take it seriously, and we've had a dramatic drop-off, as you know, in the drink-driving related cases, and we're hoping that that trend will continue, and in fact we'll be reviewing RBT to just see how successful it is at the moment shortly. But no matter which way it goes, we still have to be careful we don't make too many people suffer who are innocent of the crime, and at the moment I would believe that a lot of people are being hurt who shouldn't be.
It was New Lambton Bowling Club's 50th birthday. President Claire Ridgway and the members, District Association Women's Vice President Thelma Jagwell and special guest Daisy Whitby gathered for the occasion. In its 50 years of existence, the New Lambton Lady Bowlers have won a creditable 10 pennants. Today's festivities included rolling up what's called fire and adding a flash of colour. Mrs Whitby is the only surviving foundation member of the club and was its first secretary, a position she held for 21 years. It was a
today to
special
be here
occasion for
50
her.
years later.
It is a big thrill. I never dreamed that I'd ever see 50 years from the bowling club, but of course the other members are much older than myself and I was much younger, of course, and that gave me the privilege of living longer.
Well, 50 years ago, what was it like setting up the club?
Very hard work. They used to say the good old days, but they were very hard working days in those days because we used to help the men. In fact, we used to take cushions and help weed the greens in the early days.
Sunday, the 24th of this month, will see the main action of the weekend taking place. This year's Lake Open weekend is being organised by the Lake Macquarie Yacht Club and the Belmont 16-foot Sailing Club in association with the Lake Tourist Association and sponsors Richmond Grove Wines and Bennett's Marine. It will be more attractive than ever.
Sunday probably will be one of the biggest events held on the lake for a long time. We've got the Open Lake Championship, of course, which is open to all comers in mono hulls. We've got the Inland Surf Carnival, which will be something new to everybody. There'll be the Ironman race. There's March Pass. I think the March Pass is at 1 o'clock.
That's certainly different. How do you see the lifesavers coping with the flat waters?
Oh, that'll be great. That really makes them work hard. I know the surf makes them work hard, but you get in a boat race out there in still water, it's a real race. And there's swimming races, there's running races, there's everything that they do at a surf carnival is on the day.
And once again, you've got the ferry race, which certainly attracts a lot of spectator craft as well.
The ferry race is very spectacular. You know, we handicap them, of course, and it's last year's was good. It was very, very. I think the Natchez wants a few more revs this year, but other than that, it was great. So,
and of course, you yourself involved closely with sailing, and I believe the Rage of Our Town's coming out of mothballs, if you like, and going to take on and try and repeat what it did last year.
Well, yeah, she's coming out. We'll probably be a little bit rusty again, but she certainly is a spectacular boat, and I'm sure it'll prove to give everybody a bit of excitement on the lake with the rest of the 16s and all the other boats. I know that it'll be a very competitive event.
Employees of the Bayswater Colliery Company today presented the Hunter Valley Rescue Helicopter Appeal with the results of just over 3 months collecting. The $2,435 cheque was also matched by the company dollar for dollar to give a major boost to the appeal. One cheque was presented by shovel operator Mr. Alan Raisbeck and 4th-year electrical apprentice Maria Hobbs. This was matched by Bayswater Colliery Company General Manager Jeff Sharrock and handed over to the Honorary Secretary of the Appeal, Barry Walker. Not counting today's donations, $284,000 has been collected for the appeal, well on its way to the target set of $500,000.
The gleaming white and chrome building that has taken shape on the Pacific Highway in Charlestown over the last year is finally serving the public. The Social Security Office has had a long and difficult birth, a fact which the Federal Transport Minister and member for Shortlands, Mr. Peter Morris, recognised in his opening speech. Before a large crowd, Mr. Morris pointed out that despite the rapid growth of the East Lakes area, it took until 1979 until the federal government established a Social Security Office in Charlestown to serve. In a cramped office, 53 staff, including a social worker and 3 field officers, tried to serve more than 28,000 clients. The spacious new office cost $2 million to build. Mr. Morris said Social Security is the front line of community service and said the new office would make a difficult task a lot easier.
As Director of Monash University's Aboriginal Research Centre, Eve Peasel has been closely involved with a program to teach the Bundjalung language, one of about 115 Aboriginal languages still surviving. In Newcastle to attend today's conference, she says it's vital that such languages be maintained as a part of the overall Australian culture.
Through language you have a cultural viewpoint that's presented and that is unique to this country alone. I feel it's important to the non-Aboriginal people because unless they start to see Australia and adapt the Aboriginal culture, there won't be an Australian culture. I mean, it's no good looking to Hogues and Fosters for your culture. You've got to look beyond those sort of things. And I see that if they learn to appreciate the Aboriginal culture, that they will gain something that a lot of us non-Aboriginal Australians have missed out on over the years.
How difficult is it for anyone to learn an Aboriginal language?
The people whose first language is English, or only language is English, is very difficult because they are case languages, having up to 10 cases. And they also present a different worldview, a concept that most speakers of English, and particularly those belonging to the non-Aboriginal culture, don't understand. And this is perhaps one of the most exciting parts of learning the language, is learning the new culture that it presents.
This is how Glenn Jenkins appeared on Sale of the Century. Confident, amiable and able. In fact, he played the game so well that he made it to the top and scooped the pool. Glenn, who was a supervising mining engineer with Newcastle Walls and Coal Company, was presented with one of the major prizes, $67,000 worth of BMW cars today in Newcastle. He says he was thrilled with this investment, since he wasn't particularly keen to take part in the show initially, and his daughter Julia tried for him.
And she did. Got a letter back, an audition, and then almost 2 years later, I was asked to go down. So I went down, and you know the rest.
Glenn was selling one of the cars to a colleague and giving the other one to his wife Margaret, although Glenn couldn't resist taking the deal for its first time.
These giant lights that workmen laboured over in the drizzle last night represent the future of Adamstown Oval and big-time soccer in Newcastle. The Adamstown Rosebud Soccer Club, which finances the National Soccer League side Newcastle Rosebuds United, took the decision 20 months ago to light the Oval. The $100,000 cost is being shared by the club, the Adamstown Oval Board and the state government. The club hopes that the lights will bring the crowds back to soccer.
Sport is heading towards night competitions, and we think that we're trying to rebuild our crowds, and we think that's the way to go. Saturday and Sunday afternoons are taken up by a lot of people in Newcastle participating in sport themselves, and we feel that we can build our crowds with night games.
And this may be just the beginning of improvements to the Oval?
Ah yes, we intend to go further, and we hope that the Adamstown Oval complex can become a very first-class venue, something of a world standard.
The chances of Adamstown Oval becoming a world-class venue depends on the success of the lights. And last night there were a few problems getting them to work. 2 of the towers carry 10 lamps each, and the other 2 carry 6. The lamps are of metal halide construction and pump out 94 kilowatts. All that light will be trained on a challenge match between Newcastle and Sydney City on Saturday night. The lights will then be officially switched on by the state member for Charlestown, Mr. Richard Bates.
Good morning everyone and welcome. Around March the 31st, and it happens every year, tens of thousands of Australian taxpayers will receive their tax assessments, and the tax assessments in the main will refer to provisional tax. Now, provisional tax is little understood, and quite frankly I don't like the idea of provisional tax, but in simple language it means paying tax in advance on taxable income that you earn where you have not had any deductions at source. In other words, it's quite the opposite to PAYE, where the tax is deducted each week, fortnight or month from your paycheck. Now, once your investment income, and let's simplify this, exceeds $999, and that's going to be a continuous thing year after year, well then I'm afraid you are up for provisional tax. Now, having said that, it's not quite as bad as it seems. Firstly, you don't have to pay your provisional tax bill, as I mentioned earlier, until around March the 31st. So in effect you have around 9 months grace. So if you know that you're up for a provisional tax payment, you can put money aside on a regular basis with your bank, your building society, your credit union, where it's appropriate, Aussie bonds or fixed term investments that will mature around this date. So you can still make your money work for you. But the other thing to remember about provisional tax is this. It's most important, particularly for retirees, to allow for this in a substantial way in the first year of retirement, because if they don't, they could be up for a bill of $6, $7, $8, $9 or $10,000, if not more. And let me make another point. It could well be that by rearranging your family finances, in other words, by investing in one name instead of joint names, or by investing so that you get some of the money this financial year and some of the money next financial year, that you can legitimately avoid any provisional tax payments. I'll leave those thoughts with you, but don't forget to check out the situation, if you're in doubt, with your accountant or with the tax department direct. And when you ring the tax department, don't forget you don't even have to give a name. I'll see you next Monday.